anything you would like to comment on in regards to the way it is on the inside?
No, I have no comments about the interior of this car because it is so interior-y and so bland.
Thoughts on the way it looks, James?
It's a car. Alien arrives from space, looks at it, goes, that's a car. It's alright, it's inoffensive, isn't it?
So what do you think about the wheels?
Horrible. Why are all EV wheels horrible?
Why do you think they're horrible?
They look too small for the car, for starters. They're just horrible. Every EV wheel is horrible apart from the EQC. I think wheels are a really important thing, and for petrol heads I think that is part of the look. Whereas this car looks slightly weird, a bit like a Toyota Prius. Because you know how the Prius looked a bit weird at the back? This has got the same thing because it's also got the window, tailgate, spoiler gap to aid crashing and creating a nice blind spot. But it also has a feature that you like a lot, which it has a very large boot.
I do like a large boot.
I've heard that about you. Yeah, as I said, it's a car. Well, welcome to the Hyundai Ioniq EV. My initial thoughts are suspension's not as crashy as the Kona.
Yeah.
You would think they would be very similar, but they're not. But no, I much prefer the interior in this car, although this does have really intrusive lane departure, because on this road there's a cycle lane on the left hand side of the road, and you go near it, look at that, and it brakes as well.
Yeah, it's not having any of it.
That's a bit weird. Yeah, that's really annoying. Yeah, it's initial thoughts, Thomas?
Oh gosh, well, other than the hard break you just gave me.
Yeah. Are you crying yet?
No, I'm not crying. I'm not crying at the car. I'm not crying happy tears or sad tears. So far it's fine. I mean, we haven't really put it through its paces, but initial thoughts, it feels more spacious than the Kona Electric we just went into. Other than that, it's pretty similar. I do quite like the, what would you call this? What's the phrase for this?
Infotainment sensor.
Infotainment sensor. That does look a bit nicer. Instead of just a big screen and some buttons, it's all sort of buttonless and just touch sensitive instead.
Yeah, it's all touchy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all a bit, it's quite bright blue. One of the other little interesting features is on the dashboard, it's got an energy flow meter, see? Where it shows you whether the energy is going in or out of the battery. But you thought on the accelerator goes that way, it goes into the battery. I don't know what use that is other than as a gimmick, but
it's just mini games.
It does look a little bit like a blue turd that's steaming. But that may be because I don't have my glasses on. But yeah, it feels like a different car. Well, it is a different car, I would hear you say. But it is, you know, it actually feels like it came from a different manufacturer, which is the weird bit. Do you get what I mean with that?
Yeah, I vibe that completely.
It's interestingly, the lovely lady from Hyundai, Claire, she told us that most of the men prefer this car and most of the ladies prefer the Kona. So does that make you a lady?
Well, the inside of the car I prefer on this one so far, but the outside of the Kona I prefer. I wish I could pick a mix.
It would be interesting to pick a mix though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It feels solid. You know, it feels well built.
Yeah, it's still got that bit of that hi-fi look, like it does in the Kona, where it's got that sort of
What on these bits?
silvery, shimmery, glimmery
Sort of satin grey paint on the plastics. And the problem with that satin grey plastic is it doesn't feel very good quality. It's that weird thing that if it wasn't painted, it would probably look better. It's like they've given it a finish which actually makes it look cheaper, because in every other car it's probably made of exactly the same stuff.
Yeah, I feel like if it was just painted black, you wouldn't really pay much mind to it, but because they're going for a specific look, in a way it does make it look a little bit cheaper.
I do believe this is better than the Kona, and actually in comparison to other EVs I would say it's fairly comparable. I think the Kona feels a bit cheaper inside. We drove an MG ZS earlier, which was 21 grand or 22 grand. The Kona is 37 grand. That's 16 or 15 or 16,000 pounds more. I don't feel it. I don't go, I see where that jump goes. And we actually, while we were filming today, we actually got a bit of a scoop out of Renault. And this sort of makes the point that Renault, who own Dacia, or Dacia, or whatever you want to call them, they are not bringing, Renault UK are not bringing the Dacia Spring to the UK because it will steal too many sales from the Zoe, which it is based on. And the Zoe is nearly twice the price of the Spring. They're talking about the Spring costing 13,000 euros, which is what, 11 grand?
Yeah, I know.
Current exchange rate?
So cheap.
It's like 3 Bitcoin. No, it's not.
No, it's way less than that.
No, it's way less than that. It's half a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that is a super cheap car.
Yeah.
But it also makes you question, why are the others so expensive? There's a value question here. Because there is less engineering goes into an EV than goes into a petrol engine car.
Yeah, they'll always tell you the battery is the most expensive part of it, right? The battery just takes the biggest chunk of the money.
Well,
So,
if that was the case, when you buy your mobile phone, right, and say you buy an iPhone, which are notorious for batteries going, how much does it cost you for a new battery for your iPhone when you bought an iPhone at 1,200 quid?
yeah,
The battery's probably 200 quid.
true, yeah, but
So why would the same equation not apply with a car? The batteries, yes, are expensive. But I've been told that the battery pack for one of these is about £4,000.
that's not too different to an engine.
I've just bought an engine for a Mercedes Sprinter, complete engine with turbos, all the ancillaries, and it was £6,000.
Yeah.
So I don't understand the premium, and it's becoming clearer. And actually, from a VoltsMonster point of view, that's a big question. Maybe one of the challenges we should do, and if you're watching this, maybe you could do this for us. What we'd like you to do is go to a car dealer and ask them for the parts list for the EV and for the petrol engine one, and total it up and see what the difference in price is between all the component parts. If the component parts end up being more, say they were exactly the same, well, that proves that EVs are overpriced. That's a scare. There is a challenge. So if you're watching, you want to subscribe, press the notification bell. If you want to help us out, do that maths for us. I'd be really interested to know the answer to that. So this is the normal, relatively high speed, uphill, round the bends. It goes all right. It actually also gives us the weather on the screen, because obviously you can't look out of the window. But it does give tomorrow's weather and the day after's weather. And it has driver modes. So when you press the driver mode button, you go, that's it in eco, and it feels like it's going to slow down. And then that's in normal, where it goes all blue. And then you go super sport, and you get like go faster stripe font on the speedo.
Yeah.
But the interesting bit of this is it doesn't actually go any faster. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, we only tested it a little bit, and to me it felt a bit faster.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, before you had your foot flat out, right, and it was crawling upwards. Well, at least that jumped 10 miles quite quick.
This is in sport mode, and that's 56 mile an hour, 66 mile an hour. Slow back down again. again in normal, does that actually feel any different?
I mean, marginally. I would say it definitely feels stronger in sport mode, but not like to a point where you're like, what? Sport mode?
Yeah, it's not Taycan, is it?
No, it was definitely not Taycan.
And actually, the MG was a bit rad when you put your foot down. It went.
Oh, it went, yeah. And that's a much bigger car than this.
We've got the regenerative braking, which I can work out which way it goes up. It actually can slow you down coming down a hill.
It feels like it's going to stop us.
I think it would stop you pretty much. Well, actually, it's dropped us from 70 down to 44 already, and then that gets a bit teary because there's lorries coming down the hill behind us. So I won't do that. Because obviously, when you're in regenerative braking, I doubt the brake lights are on.
Oh, that's a good point.
So if it's
That's actually a very good point.
If it's going down like
Yeah.
normally, like look at all the cars ahead of us, they've all got their brake lights on.
Yeah, you know they're slowing down.
You know they've got their foot on the brake.
Yeah.
Not that it's terribly helpful, people running down a whole hill with their foot on the brake, because then you don't actually know when they're going to stop. So are we going to get a spate of accidents around EVs where people run into the back of each other?
Yeah, well, probably not EV to EV because they'll all be braking, but...
Yeah, they'll all be braking at the same distance. So it'll basically you'll just all stop.
I know, yeah.
So it'll just be a traffic jam for no reason, caused by one person who was over optimistic with his regenerative braking.
So what do you think of the handling, the turning, and...
Yeah, it's alright. The lane departure is very annoying.
that's because you're not indicating, James.
No, I didn't indicate, that's true. But no, it is very annoying. As for the rest of it, again, do you know what this is? This is a brilliant example of a car. If you came from an alien world and someone said, show me a car, it would tell them what a car looked like in a sort of very generic way. In the same way that if they same aliens came from space and they said, show me a woman, you wouldn't show them Claudia Schiffer, would you? Because that would give them an entirely misguided idea of what a woman looks like. You know, you wouldn't also just go to a slightly green supermarket and find one that was wearing a shell suit either.
No, of course not.
But this would be a good example of a car.
Middle of the roads, bog standard car, but an electric version.
Well, I think that's the closing line. A good example of a car.
Okay, James, final thoughts on the...
It's not a Honda.
Not a Honda.
It looks like an H.
It does, yeah.
But it's not a Honda.
Okay, what's your final thoughts on the Ioniq, James?
The Ioniq. It's kind of iconic in the way that the Mitsubishi Charisma has no charisma. It's not really that iconic. It is very much a car, and it's a nicer place to be. It's probably a nicer drive, even though it's quite slow compared to the Kona. For the value for money, it's probably there or thereabouts in terms of the market, in terms of that middle market. But overall, as I keep saying, it's a car.